Welcome to another episode of Courageous Conversations Live. I am your host, Pierre Quinn, and I'm joined today on this episode by my good friend, Anthony James Bolden Jr.
Sir.
And thanks for hanging out with us today, man.
No problem, man. I'm excited.
And I'm excited too as well. We got people watching on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on YouTube. And here's what we're going to do. Give us the quick introduction of who you are and what you do, and I'll share our conversation while you're doing that with more channels. So, yeah, take it away, man.
So I currently serve as the director of programs for a humble nonprofit called Chicago Debates. We are the largest policy debate league in Chicago, or in the nation, serving students in Chicago. Before that, I served as a pastor in the South Central Conference of Seventh-day Adventists and a worship leader. So if I could sum myself up, I think I am a motivator, a worshiper, and a lover of people.
Yeah, you have a very interesting professional journey, and you're super talented and creative, and you definitely love people. So that's why I was excited that we could have this conversation on Courageous Conversations Live. And if you're hanging out with us, we love to shout you out in the comment section and connect with you. So Anthony, let's go back, man. Give us a little bit of the backstory. You know, we look at you on your LinkedIn profile. I mean, you got the podcast going on. You're leading a program in Chicago. You're speaking literally across the country. But kind of take us back so to a pivotal point for you in your personal narrative, where you feel like you were really just beginning to develop your voice and lean into who you are.
Yeah. Honestly, it happened during the junior year of high school, man. I had different plans for my life. And I think I was at one of those crossroad points where I could kind of go down that stereotypical Black man, make mistakes and all of that stuff. But I had some teachers in my life who really believed in me, helped create an opportunity at Choate Rosemary Hall, the foremost boarding school in the country. Allowed me to go there for a summer, 6 weeks, and being in that space just helped me recognize that I have potential. And you think about just as you develop, at every phase of my journey, I've just been able to look back at that moment and those people who helped develop me. And it became pretty clear to me along the way that that's what I wanted to do with my life. And I've just been able to do that through different facets or different types of roles, if from choir to preaching, now working with young people.
What was it about that experience that was such a major catalyst for you? Because a lot of times when we think boarding school, I mean, and you had it for a summer experience,
Yeah.
when we think boarding school, and I don't know if that's just because of media or things that we've heard along the way, sometimes there's a negative connotation. You know, you go to boarding school because you're a bad kid or this was the last resort. But what was it about that summer enrichment program that served as a major catalyst for you?
Yeah, I mean, Choate was highly prestigious, right? And here I am, a kid from the hood, who wasn't convicted on the fact that I could actually be successful. I mean, we were living in Section 8 in the worst neighborhood in the city. And now I'm on this lush campus where the Kennedys sent their children, being taught by some of the, foremost teachers in US history and politics and all that stuff. So it was more like the exposure for me, and a level playing field, right? Nobody knew where we came from. It was just based off of the work that you could do. And it was those moments I recognized that I'm just as capable as the kid from Silicon Valley with the 5,000 square foot home, and that really the missing piece for me was just the work ethic. And again, like I said, the conviction to do the work to be successful. So I remember coming back home after those 6 weeks, and I looked at my community different. I looked at myself different. I looked at my friends different. I reevaluated everything, and not in a not like from a disgusting type of position, but more like the same thing my mother would say to me all the time, like, you were destined to do more. So you can't get comfortable. You have to be uncomfortable with where you are to be able to kind of push yourself to the next level.
Chat for a little bit about the resonance that was developed when you were an undergrad, you were leading choirs. You have this great story about a choir that you started to lead, and
Yeah.
when you took the mantle for this project, it was not Like it wasn't a group that many people wanted to be a part of, but
Yeah.
after so many combined efforts and your leadership, you're able to turn it around. What was that experience like?
Yeah, man. I like to say that the growth of that choir, and for those who really don't understand the significance, I went to a small historically black college university, about 2,000 students, called Oakwood University. And for some schools, their legacy is football and basketball. For our school, it was very much our choral activities. That choir didn't have that type of rich historical reputation, and there were other choirs on the campus that were just world renowned. And I believe that VOT kind of grew, or the Voices of Triumph, they grew through a willingness to be open to mentorship from other choir directors, but also just a hunger to grow and try every new thing we learned, like at the next rehearsal. So here I am, a freshman at Oakwood. I joined the choir as a member, but only stay in for about 2 months. But during those 2 months, I built a strong relationship with the choir director at the time. And I was still involved in music activities. She saw that he's a leader on this campus. He loves music. He needs to lead this choir. Make a long story short, I still remember my very first rehearsal. I was looking out the window for people. There might have been maybe 20 to 35 people in the room. I'm like, where are the rest of our members? And I just kind of convinced them that we could also be the Aeolians, who were, they are the choir of the world. At that time, they were choir of Oakwood, right? I convinced them that we could be them or better, but that in order to be that, we would have to work not 2 times as hard, but 3 times as hard, 3 times longer than them, and believe in ourselves with a deeper conviction. And anyone who kind of walked with us during that journey knew that we were highly committed to excellence. We would rehearse 2 to 3 times a week. We would travel as much as we can to get exposure and experience. We would invite people in to do special workshops with us. And I started to recognize that my role wasn't just to be the musical leader, but I was a people developer, right? Like I was helping them recognize the gifts that was within them, and helping them access it and then kind of build on that. So it's like, your voice is one of those places where you feel vulnerable, right? But trying to have an ownership of like your voice is almost like having an ownership of who you are as a person and being proud of what you offer to the world, which we would call like our choir, right? So
Yeah.
that soprano, that alto, that tenor, your voice is needed to make this chorus work. And by the time I ended my tenure, right, 5 years directing this choir until I graduated from college, the last major performance we had, I believe we had about 145 students and community members singing with us in the choir stand. So super grateful for that experience. I was able to travel the entire world with that choir, and yeah, it's super significant moment. Leadership development for me, everything personal development.
We got Antonio Lennon, leadership coach, checking in with us today on LinkedIn. He says, phenomenal guest today. His story is great. Yeah, yeah, Antonio, thanks for checking in with us. And man, I wish that we had time to go through the full story of Anthony Bolden. Listen, y'all. I mean, the book has got to be in the making.
Hey,
We,
it's
we've had a
coming.
lot of conversations like this over the years, and I'm happy to share this snippet of my my journey with Anthony with you on Courageous Conversations Live, man. I almost said on the Embolden podcast.
That's all right too.
Yeah, so hop in the comment section. Let us know that you're watching, hanging out with us. We'd love to shout you out. So I got to ask one more question about the choir before we transition
Yeah.
to the next section of our conversation. I want to ask you: do you remember one of those first moments where with this group and you recognize you're not just a choir director, you're leading, you're a people developer? Do you remember one of the first experiences with the choir where their perception of themselves changed? Was it a
Mhm.
rehearsal? Was it a performance? Was it
Yeah.
a passing comment where someone either from the outside or internally in the group said, wait a minute, we actually are starting to believe what you, the director, is saying, or what other people saying is possible for us, and maybe we stop comparing ourselves to the actual award-winning choir of the world or some of the other groups, that the group actually started, you saw it, it was tangible for you,
Yeah.
They're starting to believe, and that's when the magic started to happen.
Yeah, I actually do remember this, and I love this question. So at Oakwood and at most schools, right, you have like a homecoming or
Mhm.
an event where a bunch of, juniors and seniors from high school will come and visit the campus to, determine if this is a good fit for them. At
Yeah.
Oakwood, that event for us, it would take place every October. It was called College Days. So, I mean, 1,000 students from across the country would descend on our campus, and we basically, for that weekend, would give them the Oakwood experience, right? And one of those experiences was a concert, again, because we had this rich musical legacy. So we would want to show that off. So, it was always a very stressful night. I remember participating in it as a student first, not leading the choir, and we sounded terrible, right? And that was actually the catalyst that made me quit the choir. I was just like, I did not want to be a part of this when I was a freshman. So here I am now. Fast forward, I am a sophomore, and I'm the assistant choir director. I'm not even leading the choir yet, but I was, given the responsibility to direct that night. Make a long story short, we were singing this song that was a really popular song. Everyone knew it. So I remember getting on the stage, and College Days was a popular event, so
Yeah.
everyone would come. So we had about 60 people with us, and the room gets quiet, right? Dynamic Praise just came, they just killed it. I mean, the crowd is hype, and they're like, okay, here comes VLT. And I'm pumping them up, like, guys, just sing, right? And we had this reputation as being the worship choir, right? Just sing along with us. But I was like, remember this about God, blah, blah, blah. So we're singing this song, folks are like, okay, they sound okay. The notes
I
aren't,
love
the
the
harmonies aren't
okay.
falling apart. And we get to this one part in the song where, you're doing all the antics in the choir, sopranos, altos. And I remember the room just, everybody got up, they were clapping. When we were done, got a huge standing ovation. And it was that day where, one, I think I stepped into my role, even though not officially yet,
Yeah.
as the leader of this choir. But two, I think it was a shift that people stopped expecting for us to fail, right? Like, we shocked people, and they were like, wow, usually we don't think they're gonna, but now, we have to take a second to at least let them, play it out before we jump to judgment.
Wow.
And that opportunity led to so many more. I mean, trips to Florida, Canada, Texas, everywhere from that one experience. I think that was kind of like what just trampolined us.
Man, and it takes a lot of courage, for you in the choir to stand in that spot at an event on campus. They have these recruiting events, and to stand in that space, for you after literally bombing, the year before, to the moment where it clicked and everything came together. So I want to fast forward. I want to fast forward to your role now with Chicago Debates, and
Yeah.
how the I call it the seasoning of what happened at Choate, the seasoning of what happened with leading the choir at Oakwood College University, how that seasoning plays a role into the development and transformation that you're able to see in students, inner city students in Chicago with the Chicago Debates program.
Yeah. I love that question. Uh, I'm a believer that everything is connected, right? Everything
Yeah.
you experience in life the significance will show itself later. And in this role, it's a unique one because my primary responsibility is to my staff and the teachers that serve our students, right? Um, and and in a previous role, I was working directly with students. Now I'm not working with the students directly myself at all. I am ensuring that the staff that we've put in place are able to efficiently affect change in their lives. So what I'm doing now is taking all of that experience that I know from working directly with the constituent and trying to share that wisdom with my staff. In this role, I've been serving Chicago Debates now for about 9 months, and um, I believe my experience as a choir director has played into what I'm doing more now than it ever has, right? Because really it's all about helping develop my team, right? A team of young leaders, the older echelon or the younger or the most youngest Generation Z or millennial, and really just kind of one helping them recognize how they play a part in the tapestry that is Chicago Debates, helping them develop as leaders,
Mhm.
giving them the strength to uh, kind of face tough challenges, but not be overwhelmingly dismayed or want to throw in the towel, right? I'm taking all of that experience and using it now for employees. The members of the choir are volunteers. They can come and go at any time. But these individuals are here, they're on salary, and it's my job to motivate them to show up every day, want to be at work, want to give their all, feel like, I'm actually making a difference, even when sometimes you can't see that difference, maybe in the numbers or in the responses from our teachers or our debaters. Um, yeah, I guess that would be the same tool, right? Developing people, helping them recognize what their gifts are, and then helping them double down on the things that they do well, while also building on the things that they may not necessarily do as well.
In addition to what you're doing with Chicago debates, you have, really had the courage to speak, the courage to tell your story, the
Yeah,
courage to share your journey, and you're also building out this leadership platform
yeah.
that's touching the lives of literally people around the world. Tell us a little bit about your work as a speaker and as a podcaster and a content creator in the space of leadership, and why that started for you,
Yeah.
and how we can connect with that.
Yeah, man. It started while I was pastoring at the Oakwood University Church, and great experience, great pastors, and I just recognized that in that role, I wouldn't have the opportunity to share as much as I wanted to. So I had a lot of things that I wanted to say, and I was trying to figure out how to say them. Thought Instagram would work, or whatever those cases may be, but eventually, listening to guys like you, Pierre, and others, recognize that maybe a podcast would be a good outlet to get my thoughts out for a number of reasons. So it started with the podcast. And what I recognized after doing the podcast for about 2.5 years was that my show wasn't just a motivational podcast, right, or a lifestyle podcast, but I started to recognize that the people who would gravitate to the messages that I was sharing were individuals who found themselves in similar places that I found myself while I was sharing these stories, right? Transitioning from one place in their lives to another, preparing to leave college, whether it's undergrad or grad school, and enter into the workforce, or individuals who are early in their career, navigating the stress that is just working, right? And
Yeah.
recognizing that you're going to have to work for the next 40, 45 years before you can stop working. And then once I recognized that really my role was not just to motivate, but to help develop even in that space, even though it's not direct, right? Like, I'm not seeing these individuals, I'm just talking through them through the podcast. It kind of helped me recognize that, again, all of that stuff was connected. The experience as a choir director to now working with Chicago Debates, I'm trying to synthesize all of those experiences and say to the audience, listen, I'm going to pull in people who I know are doing it right, or I'm going to share from my experience to give you every tool you need to be successful in whatever stage you are in your journey. So now, the vision really is trying to create a network, a community of sorts that is primarily targeted to people who are what we like to call emerging leaders or emerging professionals. You're
Yep.
just getting started, right? We have tons of workshops and stuff for the executives, right? And the senior and mid managers. We have a lot for them, but it's always those new folks that just have to figure it out, right? You just have to make it or you don't, right? But what would happen to companies and organizations and faith-based institutions if their younger professionals were receiving the same type of professional development and support that the CEO and the C-suite leaders were receiving? I think that would lead to one, a higher level of retention, right? But two, I think it just leads to a more fulfilled employee who, when they do leave, because that happens, they don't leave and say it was you, right? Like, oh, the company's bad. But they leave knowing that, okay, I'm ready to take the next step, and I'm grateful for the experiences that I've had here, and it's helping me, move on.
We got Sander Camus checking in with us, man. He is shouting you out a lot in these Facebook comments.
That is my boy, man.
We have Martha checking in with us. Martha is an amazing visual facilitation artist. Just does great work. Be sure to check her out on LinkedIn. We got Zakia checking in. She checked in a little bit ago talking about the shift, man. That shift. Sebian, man, Sebian's a great guy. He says spot on, Anthony. So anyone you see, especially in my LinkedIn audience, as you see these comments coming in on LinkedIn, I need you to do two things. Connect with the other individuals in the comments, and also connect with Anthony Bolden on LinkedIn in that professional playground. He's got a lot to share. Okay, so Anthony, before we run out of time, man, give us the name of the podcast
Yeah.
and who it's for, and also the type of individuals you as a professional are looking to connect with. And we got your Instagram handle on the screen, but the other ways of connecting with you.
Yeah. So currently, right now, I go by the 80-20 rule. So 80% of my efforts right now are poised towards supporting the development of my podcast, which is called the Embolden Podcast. It is a community for individuals who are seeking to live life with intentionality, with audacity, and with faith. As I said previously, this is specifically for folks who you know are in transition, folks who are stepping into a new journey, whether that is professionally or even personal relationships, young leaders, young professionals. I think you will get a lot from what I share on the podcast and the folks that we bring in. Moving forward, the big goal for 2021 is to deliver what we're calling the Embolden experience. And what the Embolden experience is a professional development experience for emerging professions, folks who are entering into the career or their workplace for the first time, or they're within that first to 5 years. So you feel like you're still a young leader, you still have a lot to learn, or folks who are making transitions. And during that summit of sorts or experience, we want to offer resume building opportunities, interview coaching, really like how to be successful in the workplace, and then obviously some one-on-one coaching with some of the best coaches, Pierre Quinn, oh, this way, my camera's wrong, who do this stuff for a living. So some really cool stuff that I think through partnership we can make happen. And then lastly, I do want to say, if anyone has a product or a service that you want to share with an audience, I am now in that place where I really want to share specific types of opportunities with my audience. So if you have something that you would like sponsored or shared on the podcast, let me know. And then obviously the best way to really stay connected is, as Pierre said, hit me up on LinkedIn, subscribe to the podcast, share it with your friends, and I'll be sure to promote it on how you can kind of be involved as we are. For me, I really feel like we're just in the early stages of kind of building on this emboldened brand,
Yeah.
but I'm excited to see where it goes.
Listen, the Embolden podcast, man, is a great podcast. I'm not just saying that because I've been a guest a couple of times. I'm saying it because it is a really, really fantastic podcast. And Antonio Lennon, is a phenomenal guest today. His story is great. I mentioned that a little while ago. What's the episode? I don't know if you remember offhand, Anthony.
Yeah.
But what's the episode where you pull back the curtain and you told your entire story? I want people to like that. For me, that's like top three.
I think there's two. One, there's I did a series. I think it's called Stories, and it's either
Yeah,
Stories Part
yeah,
2
yeah.
or 4.
Yep.
So check that out. I think it's in the description of the episode, but it's a stories called. I mean, it's a series of stories. I asked other folks to come and share theirs. I
Yeah.
think I either went second or I went last. I can't remember, but go check out the podcast. You'll see Stories Part 2 or 4, maybe 1 or 3. I don't know. You'll find it.
Yeah.
It's only 4 series, and then I do something similar in an episode that I call Chicago, and it really talks about the journey from working, obviously, as a full-time pastor to making that transition to Chicago, which for me was it
Yeah.
was crazy. But also kind of I kind of delve into my story and how that plays a part to me making the decision to do the work that I do today.
If you are working with, I was about to say young people, but not just young people. If you are working with someone who's experiencing challenges, personal challenges, maybe they're working challenged by their self-esteem and their journey, I am telling you, go back and listen to the Embolden podcast, that section, that series on stories, and listen to Anthony Bolden's story. I am bring your Kleenex and your notepad. It's gonna be powerful.
Yeah.
It's gonna be powerful. Kyle Crawford checking in with us, man. Our good friend Kyle Crawford,
Yes, sir.
giving you a shout out as well. Listen, I know, Anthony. We could talk for hours and hours, but we both have a lot of responsibilities today. I just want to thank you for joining Courageous Conversations today, for sharing part of your story, for being open, and for inspiring folks in the few minutes that we spent together. And I know this won't be our last conversation live. So
Not at
until
all.
next time, man.
Yeah. Yeah, not at all. PR, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity, bro. You know, your mentor, your friend, your guide, we all walk in your footsteps. So as much as, you know, you're telling folks to support me, support Pierre. He is the curator of experiences. He's a guru within himself. Folks, we should be paying much more than what we're paying to get the services that we get from Pierre. So make it all of our mission. I'm gonna do it myself too, to ensure that we make Pierre famous, and what he does famous, because we know it's gonna make people better.
Man, I'm gonna have to drop some of your cash app for that stuff,
Nah,
man.
not at all. Not at all.
Bet. All right, bro. Appreciate it, man. We'll talk soon.
All right. Peace.